to Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go.
Hey.
Hi.
Happy May.
Yeah, we're not in the same room right now, so forgive the awkward pauses.
Yeah, well, we'll do our best. Yeah, I have a dog in a cone right now, so that's she needs me to stay home with her.
I also have my windows open because I don't have air conditioning yet, and so I'm not closing it for this podcast. So I don't care what you hear out the window. I'm just letting you know. I mean, you shouldn't hear much. And if it's really bad, we'll edit, but I don't care. Just want you guys to know. Okay, great. I want to start off this episode reading a review that we got on Apple Podcasts. I like to celebrate us and people who appreciate us.
You know how we love a review.
And what I love about this review is that she left it on April 8th, which I believe is our 5-year podcasting anniversary that we just like blew past.
To the day?
Last month. It's either April 8th or 9th, but
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 5 years. That's a very long time to be podcasting. You guys aren't sick of us yet? Guess not.
Well, some people were, and then they left, and then new people came. But you're here, and I'm appreciative of that. So, okay, I'm going to read what she wrote. What started as blog posts turned into a weekly podcast that turned into me booking one-on-one coaching to my entire life being altered, upgraded, and overall more fulfilling. Krachel's wisdom and real talk inspired me to find my gumption, to not accept anything less than what feels completely aligned with who I am. This podcast is perfect for those that feel stuck in their goals, life, career, or a relationship and want to find a better way. You can find an answer to almost any query, and if you don't see it, just submit a question for Dear Krachel. Sit back and absorb some real talk and magic. This podcast is a weekly must listen.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. I couldn't have written one better myself.
This is one of my clients who I recognized her screen name. So I want to say thank you, Alex, for this. It is much appreciated. And I like that we provide magic. This is not the first review that's mentioned us being a magical podcast. And that to me is maybe the ultimate compliment.
I agree. I mean, I feel like if we can't be wizards at Hogwarts in real life, we can at least have a little bit of magic on our podcast. It's the closest we can get.
I mean, I'm sad this is the closest that we might ever get, but I'll take whatever I can get. Okay. So we're actually only going to do 2 questions today because we also have an update that we want to share. And I was afraid of this episode getting incredibly long. And I want to shout before Kristen reads this update that the episode that she's talking about, if you want to go back and listen to it, is one I really liked. I mean, I like all of our episodes, but this one really stands out to me and was really helpful. It's from June of 2022. It's called Dear Krachel. I think I'm not reading it right now, but I think it's how can I get both stability and freedom in my life and career? Mm-hmm. Or maybe freedom and stability. But if you go back to June 2022, the Dear Krachel from that month is the one that we are talking about. So we got a very interesting update from someone who wrote into us last year.
Who is going by Ready to Rebel. I remember this one. I love this one. Again, we love a review. We love an update. 2 in 1 episode. I feel like that's the best way to kick it off. So, okay, here is great. Ready to Rebel's update. Hey, Kristen and Rachel. Oh, she actually said both of our names instead of the usual Krachel. Well, I appreciate that.
We encourage people to make us one person, so it's only our fault if they call us Krachel, but okay.
I know you love an update. Yes, we do. So I wanted to follow up after you responded to my question way back in episode 346 from June 2022. I was feeling suffocated by my rigid corporate job as a fire thriver and was ready to rebel against the traditional workplace culture. I thought it would be impossible to have both freedom and security in work, and the only alternative would be to quit and start working for myself. But I feared the idea of unstable income. I did end up leaving to take a contract bridge job, which gave me some room to breathe and have since come to realize how ridiculous my black and white thinking was. You challenged me to reflect on the minimum amount of stability and security that I needed to thrive. Turns out, all I needed was more flexibility in terms of schedule and location, which is very possible to get in today's climate. There has literally never been a better time to negotiate those needs. Finding the right structure of work has helped to preserve my energy and keep the fire burning inside of my sugar daddy day job. Maybe
outside. She said burning outside. Of my
outside.
Sugar daddy.
Sorry about that.
Yes.
Maybe I'm actually part side hustler. LOL, still fine tuning, I guess. Thanks so much for helping me get this clarity. I love that. I love that. Sometimes you think you need a bigger change than you actually really need. And when you define what does security look like? What does freedom look like for me? What's enough? It's like, oh, that's actually no big deal. People are doing that all the time.
I know. We really overshoot it sometimes. So the minimum amount you need to thrive might be perfectly fine for you. And it might be way more attainable than you think. This happens so often in coaching that someone thinks they have to make these dramatic sweeping changes before they'll be happy. And it's like a 2-degree shift instead of like a 120-degree shift or something. And they're like, oh, I was just being dramatic. Yeah. We tend to do that. And even if you do need a really big shift, then you can't even go from 0 to 120 degrees or 180-degree shift anyway. You have to build up to it. So it doesn't hurt to make the smaller shifts first and see how it feels. And maybe you don't even have to go further than that.
Yeah, that might be enough. Or it might be a really helpful stepping stone to a bigger change. Or you might realize, okay, that's not quite it, but I don't need to go quite as far as I thought because I actually feel way better with a 2% change. So maybe all I need is 10%, not 120%. You're going to get so much more clarification about what you really needed if you take one more next step toward what you really want, which is why I love this update. And for her, it's kind of at least for now, it's enough.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for the update, Ready to Rebel. And for those of you, again, who have not heard that episode, I really recommend you go back and listen to it. It was a very good one that I think you might find helpful if you're struggling to figure out, like, how do I balance things that feel disparate and like they are kind of canceling each other out? And it's actually, I think, less complicated than you think. So go back to June 2022 and give that Dear Krachel a listen. Okay, shall we move on to question number 1 of today's Dear Krachel?
Let's do it.
Okay. Hi, Krachel. I'm at that age where my close friends are entering a different life stage, getting engaged or married, having kids, buying houses, moving to another country, promotions, etc. I'm genuinely excited for them and want to be a supportive friend during these milestones. At the same time, it's been tough for me because I've been struggling with my mental health the past few years, and my life has been stagnating and declining because of it. While I have similar goals as my friends, I'm not in a place where I have the capacity to achieve them. Even ones where I have more control, like finding a partner. I'm just going to put a pin in that because, like, do we have more control over that? Anyway, unfortunately, I haven't had much luck on that front, which has been disheartening. Guess who's a fan of Forever Alone, the podcast? I didn't say that. She wrote that. I'm not inserting that as an aside.
But we can highlight it.
Please go listen to my solo podcast, Forever Alone, one millennial's half agonizing, half hopeful journey through singledom. Okay. While I'm getting better, lately I've been dealing with a feeling of loneliness since I'm in a very different place than my friends. It seems like the people I care about aren't able to devote much time to me, not because they don't care, but because they're preoccupied with the circumstances of new life stages, moving in with a boyfriend, a new job, wedding planning. How can I celebrate the successes of my closest friends while balancing feelings of longing and sadness? Any advice on how to come to terms with the idea that close friendship dynamics may change as life circumstances arise? Supportive, but struggling.
First of all, I just want to acknowledge that this is tough. This is tough, especially when you've already been struggling with your mental health. And so it feels like probably just getting to neutral, it has been a challenge for the past couple of years. And then trying to build forward momentum or trying to feel positive and supportive, that's a bigger hurdle when you were starting in a negative. And so I just really want to acknowledge that for a lot of reasons, it's no wonder you feel kind of lonely and sad. And that's a completely understandable way to feel, even if you also feel excited and happy for the people in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel both at the same time. One does not negate the other. So there's no reason to feel guilt or uncomfortable if you're feeling a whole range of emotions in reaction to seeing people in your life experience things that you haven't yet experienced.
Okay, Kristen, we can edit this part out if you and I don't actually want to be this honest, but I'm going to ask you and then we can edit it out if you don't want to do it. How honest do you want to be about your and my journey through this exact thing? Because I feel like we could talk about this because I could have written this and you and I have talked about this, but we've never talked about it on the podcast. Mm-hmm. And I think it's been long enough that maybe we could.
I think we could. I think that what we have come to terms with, and what I think if you're friends with anybody long enough, you will come to terms with.
This is going to happen.
If you're in any relationship long enough, you're going to realize that relationships go through phases. And they don't look the same for the entire life cycle of a relationship. And sometimes what you are able to give or what you are able to receive becomes different at different life stages. And it doesn't mean that's how it's going to be forever.
Yeah. So like a while back, Kristen and I had to have like a very a serious conversation about this because I am you. So what I forgot her pen name. Okay, great. SBS. I am you, and like Kristen is your friends, and I have other friends who are also in Kristen's shoes too. And it was particularly difficult for me because, and I wrote about this in Forever Alone, so I understand, you already know this, but for those who don't, it was particularly difficult because Kristen and I had been in the same boat for like most of our friendship, beat for beat, things were happening at the same rate at the same time. And then when I stayed single and then she didn't, and that's been true for 5+ years now, it felt like the universe had betrayed me. And I was sort of mad at Kristen, and I was very mad at the universe. I wasn't mad at Kristen, but I was so mad at the universe that some of it couldn't help but be directed toward
spilled over
Kristen too, which she didn't like, because as a people pleaser, she really didn't like that something she couldn't control was catalyzing a existential crisis for me. But I feel like that was actually a good growth opportunity for you, even though you didn't like it.
Fair.
And I told you multiple times during that phase that I was like, oh, I'm sorry that my pain is causing you a lesser pain. Deal with it. If I can deal with my pain, you can deal with your pain about my pain. Fuck off. I don't care. I don't think she liked hearing that either, but honestly, I stand by it. But anyway, what we came to not that long ago was that it's okay. First of all, it's okay for relationships to go through phases, and it is okay if needs that one person used to be able to meet, they no longer can. Because I think Kristen was, sad that I couldn't be more involved or supportive of her life, outside of Clarity on Fire and stuff. And I think I was sad that I couldn't relate to her on the same level that we'd been relating for years and years and years. Because again, everything, we went through everything beat for beat, and then it was and then that changed. And
it was doubled up because that was happening in life and in our business. And so it felt like all areas of our lives were hitting milestones around the same time. Whereas I just think that that's an amplifier when you are best friends and business partners.
Right. Because it's like we were still together on this one front, but we were like separating on this other front sort of inadvertently. And it's like the pain of like one direction being separate, but one still being the same was almost like more tension. Mm-hmm. Whereas if we were just friends and we didn't have like a shared, business and bank accounts and stuff, like it might have felt less messy and less difficult and less like a divorce, to be honest. Mm-hmm. At least for me, that's how it felt. And so anyway, I think what we had to sort of make peace with was that like, okay, I'm not going to like resent you, because what will really kill the relationship is resentment and unspoken expectations and pain and sadness that's not being brought to the forefront. So what we decided was like, I'm not going to resent you for not being able to meet my needs fully right now. And you're not going to resent me for not being able to do that. And that I think has helped a lot. Mm-hmm. And
I think we can both acknowledge that it's not, you can go through phases in a relationship and some of them will not be your favorite.
Right. This is not my favorite. And like, hopefully one day it ever fucking ends, like time will tell.
Well, the one thing that you can be sure of is that all phases do end. It's just, we never know the timing of things. And that is the existential angst of the human experience, is that we never know how long anything is going to last. But we do know it's never going to stay the same, not indefinitely. So there is some comfort in that. And it does help to communicate and just say, I think we need to redefine expectations. And it doesn't mean you won't feel sad about that, or you won't feel disappointed, or there won't be a little bit of an adjustment period. But I think what might be making the situation harder for supportive but struggling is you feel that things are changing and it's unacknowledged, and you don't really know how the other person is feeling. And you don't know, do they have less time for me because they don't care as much, or because they just have so much going on, or because I'm kind of not a priority anymore. So you end up making up a story that feels possibly more hurtful than the truth. And so when you can communicate and just say, hey, here's what our relationship is evolving. And maybe that's not a bad thing, but we do need to talk about how can we be there for each other, and how maybe can't we in this phase. Yeah. And it can just kind of clear the air a little bit.
I mean, I would hope that that's what happens. But like, so as the one who relates more to your experience right now, SBS, what I would say is that you're allowed to have boundaries. You're allowed to draw a line in the sand and say, I would like to support you, or, like in my ideal world. And this is what I straight up told Kristen, like in my ideal world, I would like to be as supportive to you and as like present or whatever as you want me to be, but it causes me too much pain. And that's not personal. Mm-hmm. It's just like, it's literally something I can't control. And so I'm not going to do myself a harm by trying to be more for you than I actually am capable of being. And to her credit, she understood that and didn't like blame me for it. And I would hope that if you have like really good friends and maybe they're confused about why you're not as present or whatever, like that you would be able to articulate to them that like this that it isn't personal. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's the reverse. Maybe it's that you wish they were closer, but they're drifting away because they've got all these other things going on in their lives. To remember that, it's not personal and it's not about you, and that it is a phase, and that you don't necessarily have to resent them for it is critical. And I think the most important thing I will say is that this is when you need people in your life who can relate to you.
Yes, I was going to say,
because that's what I have now that I didn't have 5 years ago, was like, I made other friends. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Sorry to Kristen, But I have a lot more friends who can like now relate to my current experience. And that has been a real like saving grace and balm to my spirit, because I think you need people who understand what you're going through, because even if someone wants to be empathetic, if they haven't walked that same road, they're not going to be able to get it as viscerally as you might need or want your other friends to.
Yes, I think recognizing that if a friendship or a series of friendships are evolving and they may not be able to meet the same needs or you may not be able to meet each other's needs in the way that you once did in an earlier phase, that doesn't mean those needs go away and that you don't need to get those things met in some way, shape, or form. You just might need some new people. And I don't mean replacement people. I mean just new, different people who can complement the friendships that you already have and who are more aligned with the phase that you're in, because that's why you're feeling so lonely. It feels like everybody else is in a different phase and I'm here on my own. But there's a lot of people who are experiencing what you're experiencing, and it feels way less lonely when you can bring some of those into your inner circle.
I think your ability to be as happy as you're capable of being for your friends relies on you being able to feel the full depth and breadth of your emotions and your experience. Because if you are trying to suffocate it, or you feel shame around it, then that's going to prevent you from feeling anything, including any degree of happiness for your friends that you're able to have.
Yeah, you need to give yourself some space to feel all of it. And don't suppress the loneliness. Don't suppress the jealousy or the disappointment or whatever feelings are coming up. They're all valid. And if you feel ashamed,
layer shame, right? Like don't layer shame on top of it is my thing.
If you feel ashamed of them, you'll suppress them, and then it'll end up turning into resentment. And then it really might ruin relationships that did not need to be ruined. If you feel them and you let them pass and you acknowledge them and you give yourself a little bit of grace for being a human, then you can move on and redefine the relationships that you have and bring in new relationships that you need at this phase. And it doesn't have to feel so, it might feel messy, but it doesn't have to feel so painful.
Okay. Does that help? Supportive but struggling? There's like no one right, easy answer to this question, but I hope that us sharing very openly helps you feel less alone. Because I think that that's maybe thing number one. This is something we don't talk about enough. Mm-hmm. Like as a, not just you or me, but anybody. We don't talk about how friendships change and how lonely that can be and how it's okay to like have any sort of feelings about that you might have, that there's no shame in it. And there's not like an easy, quick fix to it. There's not supposed to be. But I do hope that you'll find some people who can relate to your struggles and who will make you feel maybe more seen than your current friends are able to make you feel.
And I also think that this is probably more prevalent in big and small ways than we realize. Almost everyone feels like they are behind or they are lacking in some kind of arena of life. And sometimes it feels like all of them at once. It feels like, oh, everybody's got it's in a totally different phase than me. And sometimes it might just be one area of life. So maybe you feel like I've been really struggling with my health, and that's been really hard and it seems so easy for everybody else. Or I've been struggling with money. I feel like everybody else has got this figured out and I just can't figure out how to take care of myself financially. Or whatever arena it is, I think that a lot of people have this experience and relate to this experience, or have before or will in the future. Because once you get out of school, we're not, as adults, all in the same phase almost ever. We're all in different there's no path, right? There's no like set of milestones at certain timelines where everybody just, it's not like graduation. You all go to middle school and you're done at the same time. You all go to high school and you're done at the same time. Once we get into adult life, it's just all a mess. And so if you're feeling like that to a small degree, to a large degree, I just also want to normalize that because it's kind of part of being an adult. There's always going to be people who have achieved things that you want to achieve, or who have experienced things that you want to experience, or who are a little further ahead. And then there's also going to be people who you are further ahead than. And often you don't give yourself credit for that. There's people who are still struggling with their mental health where SBS was a year or two ago, and here she's come a long way, and not necessarily giving herself credit for the fact that somebody might look at her and say, wow, I can't wait to get to that point.
Okay. We could go on, but I hope that helps SBS. And please update us. Even if you don't have an update yet, even if you just want to share how it landed with you, contact@clarityonfire.com. We'd love to hear from you. Okay.
All right. Let's get into question 2. Dear Krachel, I should probably start by saying I'm an Enneagram type 6, so overthinking things comes very naturally to me. But I wonder/worry a lot about whether or not I'm in denial about certain things. For example, I got back on dating apps a few months ago, even though I never felt like they would work for me, and they still haven't. Part of me suspects that, for whatever reason, I'm going to be single a while longer, even though I don't want that to be true. So was getting on dating apps my way of being in denial? Like, I sensed an uncomfortable truth, but I didn't want to deal with it, so I reacted by downloading the apps? But then again, am I even right about being single for a while longer? That might be intuition, but what if it's fear? Maybe that's what I need to get clear on? Anyway, you can see the loops in my mind. I guess I'd like to hear your take on what it looks or feels like when you're trying hard not to know something, and or telling the difference between intuition and fear. I will hear anything that you want to share, and that is from Priya.
Why is everything in this episode bringing me back like 5 years? Like, why am I having to revisit this? What is happening? Is this on purpose? We're doing a life review or something. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a good news. Maybe that means that cycle is ending.
Is there some sort of astrological something or other that's on
eclipse season?
5 years?
Yes. No, maybe not 5 years. We are in an eclipse season, which I can't tell you exactly what that means, but it is intense.
Well, we'll blame it on that.
But what's reminding me, this question is reminding me of 5 years ago when I was super, again, back to feeling betrayed by the universe about my path and Kristen's diverging and me not really understanding why it had been the same for so long and now it's different. And I'm like, well, wait, what did I do wrong? Like, have I messed up here? Like, it just caused every existential question you can imagine to pop up. And in that moment, I really felt like, I think I'm going to be alone for like many years longer. And I told you that, and you were like, no, that's not true. Guess what, bitch? I was right. And I do not savor being right about that. But I was correct. I was 100% correct about that. But here's what I can't tell you. I don't know if I was right because I was intuitively picking up on the truth of it. And then I was reacting really badly to that truth because it scared me. And I couldn't imagine, like, you know, continuing on my journey through singledom for another 5 years and living through it. Here we are. I'm alive. Or if that was just fear, it just so happened to come true. Do you see what I'm saying? How do we tell? I don't even, maybe I don't know how to answer this question. Help me too.
Well, I don't think that there's no formula for discerning fear versus intuition. There's a reason that we've answered this question before and why this question keeps coming up, because it is a little bit messy, and learning how your intuition speaks to you is kind of a personal thing. I think there are some guidelines that tend to be more true than others, but sometimes you don't know if it's intuition or not. until time passes, and then you see if it was validated or not.
I still don't know if that was intuition. Like, I was right, and I still can't tell you if it was intuition or not.
Right. So it's not, I mean, again, there isn't a right or wrong answer. I think generally I can speak about the being in denial piece of it, because that has been a long-term area that I've had to get much more conscious about. My Enneagram type is type 9. And so denial is very comfortable. And it has taken a lot of years, maybe my whole life, to be willing to be honest about things that I am in denial about. And I know the feeling now of being in denial. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable in a different way than acknowledging the truth is. Let's see. Denial feels like it feels.
Well, she said trying not to know something. So, like, is that what it feels like?
Yeah. It's like there is something nagging at you, and you just kind of keep distracting your mind. But if you let it sit too long, the thing you're trying not to know will creep in, and you'll just have to bat it away. But you know that feeling of this, like, how do I describe it? I mean, I think that is maybe the best way to describe it. It's like there's just a nagging. It's like there's a gnat in your mind that's buzzing around, and you just keep batting it away, but it keeps kind of buzzing in the background, and you know it's there, but you don't really want to see it. Acknowledging the truth is, or knowing the thing that you don't want to know, acknowledging the thing you don't want to know, sometimes feels bad, but at least it feels less annoying. It's not like there's nothing flying around your head anymore. There's nothing hiding behind the shadows. It's just now you have to deal with the repercussions of what it is you didn't want to know. Do you feel sad now? Do you feel disappointed? Do you feel hurt? Do you feel what is it that you now have to deal with that you were avoiding?
I feel like trying not to know something is a lot of work.
It is. It's exhausting.
So that's a good indication of, like, am I in denial, or am I, trying not to know something? Well, how much work are you putting in?
And how much are you distracting and numbing?
Right. Yeah. We actually have a podcast episode from way back. I actually looked this up because I think this would be a really good one for Priya to go listen to, and anyone who wants to, like, just talk more about denial. It's a side chat in September 2019. It's called 7 Signs That You're in Denial, I think. I'll link to it in the show notes, but you can scroll back to, again, September 2019 to find that. And we had a very long conversation about, like, all of the different indicators that you might be in denial. So there's more nuance to this. But yeah, I think maintaining denial is a lot of work. And so if you see yourself creating a lot of extra mental labor to not think something, or to rationalize, or to justify something, that could be an indication that you're doing a lot of, it's like you're doing a lot of construction work in your mind and making yourself busy so that you don't have to look at this one thing.
Trying to build walls around that.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to build constant, and they keep falling apart. So you keep running around trying to repair them as they're falling apart, because the truth wants to be let out usually. And I'm trying to apply this to me 5 years ago, who was, like, in your shoes, like in this exact situation that you're talking about, wondering the same thing, like having this, like, what I wasn't sure whether it was an intuitive knowing or not. And I just can't tell you whether it was intuition or fear, because I don't think I was trying not to know it. Part of me is like, was I actually allowing myself to know it, and I was having a terrible reaction to it because I didn't want it to be true? See what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm annoyed that I can't answer that.
And I don't know if you need to know. You don't.
I don't know that it matters.
And I understand why Priya wants to figure that out, because it's like, okay, well, is this my intuition giving me a message about what's coming down the pike and I just need to deal with it? Or am I just thinking this because it's a fear that I have that's surfacing. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter unless it spurs you to act in a way that's fear-based. So,
well, which is why she's asking about the apps.
But that's like, a different question.
Getting back on the apps.
Do you need to figure out if your feeling of I'm going to be single for a while longer is true or not? No, that's going to just become clear or not. You don't have to figure that one out. The universe is going to figure that one out. Time is going to give you that answer. All you need to figure out right now is, what is my intention for getting back on the apps or not? Is there a part of me that feels like I'm willing to do this even though I know it might be annoying sometimes? Or I just feel called back to a particular app even though I don't love them? Versus, am I doing it because I'm afraid if I don't, I'll never find my person? That is a very different intention than, all right, I feel open, I feel willing, I maybe even feel kind of drawn, even though I don't like it. I don't like that I feel drawn to it. That's fine. But if it's this urgency or this like panicky, well, if I don't, then maybe I'm never going to meet anybody. And then maybe you're like, that is a fear-based reason. And you can feel that because it feels like anxious and panicky.
Yeah. I think what Priya wants and what I always want, what everyone probably wants, is certainty. Mm-hmm. And that's not what you're going to get. Like, I know that it feels like if I can figure out why I'm doing this, like if it's coming from a place of denial, then I'll at least have certainty, even though it will suck. Because to have certainty around the fact that I'm going to be single for years longer sucks. You don't want to believe that. And the truth is that I just don't think, even if your intuition is saying that, I love how I'm talking directly to myself when I say this. Take your medicine, Rachel. I don't feel like even if your intuition is right in saying it might be a while longer, intuition is subject to change because the future is changeable. Things are in motion. Things evolve, and
other people are involved and they have free will and they have a say in the matter. So your intuition might be picking up on what the most likely
candidate
at this moment, what that might pan out to look like. In 6 months, in 3 weeks, the situation could change. You could be in a very different space. They could be in a different space.
Yeah.
A number of mitigating factors could have evolved. That's kind of the fun and the chaos of freedom of choice.
So maybe the question needs to shift from like, am I trying not to know something? And it needs to be like, how about you try not to know? Like I'm almost like not embracing denial, but like releasing the need to know anything for sure and certain. That's what I feel like we need to embrace. And that's not denial. That's actually the opposite of denial.
It's surrender.
Like that's surrender. That's open-mindedness. That's like, I can't know everything. And even if I have an intuitive hunch around something, I can respect that and still be open to things evolving and changing because they do. Mm-hmm. And if my goal ultimately, if I zoom out and my goal is still to like find love and partnership, and it makes me feel better at this moment to put myself in a situation where I might connect with some people, then great, you can do that. And guess what? You might still be single for years. But as someone who has done exactly what you just said, like gotten on the apps thinking this will be the thing that does it, and it has not been the thing that did it. I certainly have had some very illuminating experiences and things that helped me grow, and people who helped me in ways maybe I didn't really want to be helped, but ultimately were good for me, heal and move on from some old sticky patterns and stuff. Like there is value in every experience that you're going to have along the way. And to not not need to be certain opens you up to the experiences you might need to have to get you to your quote unquote destination.
And if you didn't try to figure out, am I having an intuition about this? Am I having a fear about this? It might actually allow you to discern better what feels good to you today. So if you have what feels like an intuitive feeling, an intuitive thought of, well, I think I'm going to be single for a while longer, then if you're considering going on an app, your immediate thought's going to be, well, why bother? It's not going to go anywhere. Right. So if you are overly attached to predicting the future or needing to know how it's going to pan out, you don't really get to decide what you truly want to do in the here and now. If you surrender, I don't know how this is going to pan out. I don't know when this is going to happen, how this is going to happen. Then if you scale back and say, do I want to get on the apps? And I have no idea where it's going to go, and I'm not trying to guess ahead of time, then you can really get clear with yourself. Yeah, okay, I'm open to that right now. Or, you know what? Nothing in me wants to do that. So I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. I feel like I had to just take a whole big dose of medicine that I didn't want. Both for like my past self and even my future or my present self. Maybe even my future self, God forbid. But I feel like that helped me though. Like embrace the idea that, oh, God, stop reaching for certainty and don't do anything because what you're trying to get out of it is certainty. That's the wrong motivation because you can't know. You just can't know. Things do change on a dime, and things that you weren't expecting can just, like, I don't know, send your life into a crazy left turn. A good one, not always a weird one or a bad one, though I've had them all. Like, so just stop trying to know and don't base your decisions off of that.
And if you're craving certainty, you're going to default to believing it won't work. And that's just how the human mind works. If you really want certainty and you cannot be sure that something is going to work, your brain is most likely going to tell you, well, if you want certainty, let's just be certain it won't work, because then at least you won't be disappointed.
We had a Dear Krachel episode a while ago, not that long ago, like this year, I think, where we talked about nihilism and how I was like, I think the nihilistic point of view is just a grasping for certainty, and we're more comfortable with certainty even when it sucks than we are open to hope, because hope will just rip you open like time and time and time again, and it'll let you down in a way that almost like being nihilistic doesn't let you down because there's no further to go. You're already at the bottom. You can't be dropped when you have no hopes. But living without hope also really freaking sucks.
Which is why you just gotta let go of certainty, because it's gonna lead you down an unhelpful path one way or the other. And instead, just kind of embrace like nobody knows.
The vulnerability of not knowing. The vulnerability of
None
hope.
of us know what's happening next. None of us know. No. And we all hate it. And we are all grasping for certainty, but we just have a smoother experience if we just went on the ride. Let it see where it took us.
So maybe, Priya, the vibe is now, okay, I don't need to know. I don't even have to like that, but I don't need to know. And instead of worrying that I'm in denial, maybe I'm just going to decide, okay, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong about this intuitive download. But what do I feel like doing? Like, you can respect your downloads and then decide, but I have free will. So what would I like to do? And stay open to maybe I'm wrong about that. It wouldn't be the first time someone's been wrong about something that they downloaded, for God's sake. Even if it is a download, which we're not convinced it is.
And again, don't have to figure it out. The only question you have to ask and answer is, what do I feel like doing right now?
Yeah. Do I want to be on these apps just because I want to be here? Not because I think it's predictive of anything in the future, just does this work for me right now? That's it.
Simplify.
Oh, man.
Okay. Well, we only had 2 questions.
Coach
but
my
we
damn
had,
self on that
we
one.
had a lot to say about both of them. So please, as always, if any of this resonated, which I can't imagine how it wouldn't on some level, let us know. I feel like everybody's...
I'm certain of that. We can't be certain of anything else, but I am certain that something here had to have resonated with you.
I'm certain of it because we're all humans, and so we have all experienced versions of both of these questions. So
yeah,
let us know what resonated and what you took away. We always love to hear your thoughts and your comments. We will be back next week with a interview.
Oh, and a normal person interview.
Yes.
Yeah, with my former client. I'm not sure if we're doing her name or not. We might be doing an anonymous situation or something, but whatever, it doesn't matter. She's my former client. She's great. She moved abroad and became a freelancer and did not think that such a life was possible for her. And I just really want her to tell her story because she was so trapped in a toxic environment and then got out of it so much easier than she thought was possible. So come back next Friday. Oh, and I'm going to tease that next Friday, we're also going to be, I love how we're not doing any fanfare or build up to this, which we usually do, but I'm just letting you know that next Friday, we are going to be opening up enrollment for one-on-one coaching. So if you have been thinking about that or interested in that, then next week is when we're going to start the short window of time where we're like talking to people and taking on new people. So think about that. Look at the one-on-one coaching page. I'll put some, info in the show notes about that, but you can just go to clarityonfire.com/coaching, right, Kristen?
Yep.
That's the right URL.
That's correct.
And you can check that out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We'll tell you more about it next week, and we will see you with a new interview.
Bye.
Bye.